As we know, the Chargers have gone 11-6 in back-to-back years under Jim Harbaugh. And a major reason for that in 2025 was the defense, ranking in the top 5 in scoring in the NFL. And although Jesse Minter has gone to Baltimore, let's break down what he left behind. In round 2 of our player evaluations, the defense. Let's get into it. It's a bittersweet moment to rate the defensive players for the 2025 season because we have lost a great man who has gone off to better pastures as the head coach for the Baltimore Ravens. And, I guess better pastures is kind of the wrong thing to say, but hey, he's going to be, for him, it's better pastures because he's going to be a head coach. He was defense coordinator for the past 2 years, and it's been really great for the Chargers and their defense. A little bit of a squandering moment having such a great defense and offense stuck in neutral with Greg Roman, but just one of those things you got to, get right. And hopefully Chris O'Leary can take up the mantle, as being a Jesse Minter disciple and keep the train rolling, right? But Jesse Minter's gone, and the legacy left behind in the 2 years that he was with the Chargers is a good one. One of the better defensive coordinators we've had in quite some time. Far cry from Brandon Staley and what he did here. Ooh, I'm sorry, my PTSD hit me for just a brief moment, but I'm back. So Jesse Minter left a lasting impression for the Chargers, and what the defense did as a whole, as a unit in 2025 was nothing short of amazing, especially with having a very, very inconsistent offense on the other side that didn't compliment you a whole lot. The defense showed up and showed out in a big way. Definitely kudos to that. And me being a defensive guy all my life, I could definitely, sing the praises of that. That was one of the bright spots of the 2025 season. So we're going to break down all the players from the D-line, interior edge, linebackers, corners, and safeties. We're going to break them all down, all the starters, all the major contributors, and what they did overall in the season. And I got a couple of nuggets here that I want to highlight, too, about some guys that kind of shocked me and how they played throughout the season, kind of went under the radar. So we're going to get into all that. But like I said, kudos to Jesse Minter. The defense as a whole was great, this particular season. Total defense, they were number 5. I believe rush defense, they were 5 as well. Pass defense, they were 5. Rush defense, they were 8. So yeah, they definitely did big things. And I think total defense was 5, and I think total EPA was 6. If I have that right, yeah, total yards was 5, total EPA was 6, yeah, and defensive efficiency was 6. So yeah, top 10 in all the major categories of the defense in the NFL for the 2025 season. So you can't ask for much more than that. And by normal standards, I wish I could wave a magic wand and say I had Mike McDaniel as a coordinator for those 2 years that Jesse Minter was here, because that would have been a dream team. Have a top 5 defense and a potential of a top 10 offense. That's Super Bowl worthy. If you have those two in tandem, that's Super Bowl worthy. But the life of a Chargers fan, you got one thing right and 2 things wrong. You got 2 things right, 1 thing wrong. There's the reason why we haven't fulfilled our prophecy just yet. But I'm not going to preach here. We're going to talk ball, and we're going to talk to these guys and what they did for the 2025 season. So, we're going to get to the starters, talk about the edge guys, the Khalil Mack, Tuli Pulopu, Bud Dupree, Ode Afwe, Adafe Owe. I always screw that up. I don't know why I do that. Adafe Owe. I'm reading it, and it sounds right, but it doesn't come out right the first time. I don't know. It's something weird about that. Terry Tart, who just got a new deal. Jamari Caldwell, who I was raving about in the preseason, he showed out. Justin Eboigbe is the third interior D lineman, and Deshaun Hand for the front line. Linebackers, Deion Henley and Denzel Perryman, Dante Jackson, Tarheeb Steele, Cam Hart, Benjamin St. Juice. And then we'll get into Derwin James, of course, all-pro slot corner / safety, Elijah Molden, R.J. Mickens, who I've raved about again in preseason coverage. And he played well in time he was out there. And, of course, Big Unc, Tony Jefferson. We're going to talk about him as well and what they did. So starting off with the edge guys, the main guys, the 2 main edge guys for the season, Khalil Mack and Tuli Pulopu. They had great seasons, and Khalil Mack's season was only derailed slightly by elbow injury. He hurt his elbow, dislocated his elbow in the first quarter of the season and missed some time. So he only played 12 games. But 32 total tackles from the edge position. He had 6 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks in 12 games. Didn't have any interceptions this year, but he forced 4 fumbles. Didn't have any defensive scores. It's the only thing that was missing about from the defense this year. As a quick caveat, the defense did not have any defensive touchdowns this year. No pick sixes, no fumbles, scooping scores, none of that. They turned the ball over, but it didn't result into any scores, which, I mean, that's a luxury. That's a novelty. You don't have to have that. Most teams don't get that on a regular basis, but I just found it odd that we didn't take any of those turnover to the house this year. Weird. But we did get turnovers in the large space, so that we'll get into who did what. But yeah, so that was Khalil Mack's stats, solid year. Our aging, solid veteran presence and our our enforcer in a sense. That was his role. Curious about whether or not he's going to come back. I would hope he would try to give us a little bit of a discount on his price tag. If he wants to stay with the team, the $20 million tag at his age and his production, it's a little bit high for me when I want to resign Ode Offway. I did it again. Odafe Owe. I want to re-sign him, and I would potentially want to get an edge in the draft. So I don't know. We'll see. But if he doesn't retire, he has a Hall of Fame career already, so he doesn't need to bring it back. But I mean, if he sees potential in the Chargers making a run to the Super Bowl this year, maybe he will. But yeah, I will see what he does. But I mean, solid season from Khalil. Nothing bad to say about him. I've always loved the way he holds the edge. He's great. His run defense is great. Very big time power guy. Power edge rushing guy. So that's his skill set. That's his bag. So definitely does that well. 5.5 sacks. Can't complain about that at all. From a guy that took a backseat a little bit to the young guy, the emerging guy, Tuli Tuipulotu, played 16 games. He saw the last one. 49 total tackles. He had 20 tackles for loss. 20 tackles for loss in the season. 13 sacks, which built on that 8.5 that led the team last year. So he led the team again in sacks this year with 13. No interceptions either, but he forced 2 fumbles. And again, no defensive touchdowns. So yes, Tuli was definitely the MVP of the defense and up front for sure. Again, 13 sacks out of 16 games. That's damn near a sack a game. Yeah, he definitely did the big one. 20 tackles for loss. Caught a lot of guys in the backfield. Yeah, he did his thing. And for a guy that's still ascending, because he came into the Chargers organization as 20 years old. So he literally legit going to be 22 years old. He's still developing, in my opinion. We haven't seen a peak of his skill set, in my opinion. I think he's got more to go. So the Chargers got to steal. That's one thing I will praise, the previous regime for doing and bringing him in. And a lot of people slept on his skill set, and he was a second-round pick. So we got 2 more years, and we got to figure out how to pay him. But yeah, I definitely believe that we got to hold on to this guy because he should be the staple and the main guy going forward as the edge rushing guru, and just overall three down lineman. So love what Tuli's doing. Nothing but glowing marks for him. Definitely give him an A grade for this season. Give Khalil Mack probably B minus because he was hurt. But yeah, outside of that, I definitely believe that those guys were definitely solid this year for the defense, and they held it down when they were on the field. Now, getting to the DPR guys, the designated pass rushers. We got Odafe Owe. I'm trying to get it right. Odafe Owe right at the trade deadline. So he played 12 games. And I believe I think if I had this right, he played 12 games with the Chargers he wasn't hurt at all. So the 12 games he played on this list was the 12 he played for the Chargers. So of course he started the season with so that would mean he played 5 games with the Ravens, right? But his stats with the Chargers were 28 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 7.5 sacks. Now, mind you, I'm gonna stop it right there. I mean, he didn't do much outside of that. Didn't force any fumbles, no defensive touchdown interceptions. But just think about this. He had that type of stat line in reserve duty. He didn't play every down. He was only in a reserve pass rush role. So means that he only came on the field in second and long and third and long type of environments. And he literally lit it up. I mean, his speed off the edge, his moves, his ability to get to the quarterback and run down quarterbacks with that 4.3 speed at his height and his weight. That's amazing. This is one guy who is a talent. And I'm not sure what the Ravens are doing over there and why they can't get pass rush right. And why they kind of move on from guys when they draft them high, but that was a steal. They got a low who played well for them, and we got him, and they paid off really well for both teams. And we needed something. They needed something. It was a great exchange. I love what they did there. So yeah, so definitely bringing in Odafe Owe back. It should be a priority for the Chargers in 2026. And then getting to Bud Dupree, I can't say the same. A couple of guys argue with me on X, Twitter, or whatever you want to call it, in regards to Bud's, I guess you can say, value to the team. I don't see it, and I haven't seen it since he's been here. In all honesty, again, for a guy that's very, detailed in watching film, watching the all 22 playbacks for the Chargers games, and watching games as they happen, right? I just don't see it. As being a football guy, I just don't see what Bud's value right now, and I just think we're wasting a roster spot having him. And I talked about this in my, keep and cut video, a week or so ago, and he should be one of the guys on the list. We should definitely let him go. It's not expensive to cut at all. I think he just needs to go. We're wasting a roster spot on him. And elevate, Cal Kennard, just develop him. He was a rookie last year who had some, healthy scratches, some little bit of injuries, and just a topsy turvy rookie season. So I think we need to utilize Cal Kennard's youth and abilities, and develop him into that next guy, and being that next reserve pass rusher, and taking Bud's place, and not waste a roster spot on Bud. It can go to a better place and better person. Played 16 games, only had 16 total tackles. He had 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Not great. Not great. I mean, if you look at him and Adafe's having the same type of role, and look what Adafe did in 12 games and what he did in 16, it just doesn't equate. Just doesn't equate. So I definitely believe that but the time Bud is being really good in this league is past. I really think it's time for him to either hang it up or just find another area where he could be valuable, right? Even if it's just from a mentor perspective, because he's been in the league quite some time. So I think that outside of mentoring for somebody else, I think it might be time for Bud to think about the next phase of life. In all opinion, in all honesty, respectfully, of course, but. Yeah, I think it's time. I don't think we need to waste more time on Bud's, taking up a roster spot for this team. So I think I'll move on. So I'll give him an F. Definitely give Daffy an A for his time. And it's time to move on from that guy and Bud Dupree. Getting into the interior D lineman guys, and these two guys I'm very happy about. I'm very, very giddy about the fact that they're going to be lined up with each other for the next 3 years, because they just signed Sierra Tart to a 3-year deal. Jamari Caldwell was a rookie, drafted in the 3rd round, so he's got 3 more years on his deal. So they're going to be in lockstep for the next 3 years in tandem, and I'm loving that, because I raved about Jamari Caldwell's production out of college. The only thing my concern about him was his conditioning, and he playing 17 games kind of made that for me. He wasn't hurt. He played all the games. He was very productive. He was really good against the run. So he checked all the boxes for me, and he can only get better in my opinion. But starting with Terry Tart, he does this thing, and him with Khalil Mack are the enforcers of that D-line. He played all 17 games, from interior D-line spot. He had 32 tackles, 4 for loss, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. But, the 0 sacks thing is kind of indicative of him being off the field on pass rush downs, because they did a lot of bringing in, 4-down rushers. Sometimes they would bring in Thule, Mack. They would bring in Bud and Adafe to rush off the edge at 4. So him and Jawar would be off the field a lot in regards to, downs where you can really get sacks. So, so that's indicative of that number. But and even still, a lot of interior D linemen don't get a lot of sacks anyway. I mean, they get double and triple teamed. The edge rushers get all the glory. So, but it definitely saw the season for Terry Tart. He did his thing. He was really good against the run. I think him and Jamar Caldwell ranked in the top 10 or 15 in run defense. I want to say top 10. Recollecting what I looked at in PFF a couple of days ago. So yeah, they definitely were doing big things and stopping the run, and he had a rough go at it trying to run at him for sure. I know they did a lot of running away from him when they started to get film on who was solid up front. So yeah, so Terry Tart did his thing. Like I said, Jamar Caldwell did his thing as well. 31 tackles from 17 games, 5 tackles for loss, 1 more than Terry Tart. Ironically, he did get a sack. He did force a fumble. He didn't have any interceptions or defensive touchdowns, obviously, but yeah, very solid campaign for a rookie at 3rd round pick. I mean, what more can you say from an interior D lineman? And again, qualifying out in the top 10 in run defense for him as a rookie, that's definitely something to behold. I love that. So great performance from those two guys, and definitely give them a solid A grades for what they did in the interior D line. And moving on to 2 other guys that were, noteworthy men who played a lot of games, 17 and 13 respectively, Justin Boybe and Deshaun Hand. Justin was, a holdover. Actually, no, I lied. Harbaugh drafted him last year. He was an Alabama kid. They drafted in the mid rounds. I believe he was a 3rd round pick. I think it's him and Junior. Junior was a third round pick, and he might have been a fourth. But yeah, he was drafted in the fourth round, I think, last year in 2024. He had some struggles in his rookie season, but he got into his offseason workout program. Jesse Miller spoke his praises and how he developed over the offseason and said he was going to have an impact. And I was kind of curious about how that was going to translate because I really didn't see him a lot flash early. But this is the sneaky part about his season, right? He played all 17 games. He had 39 tackles from the interior D line. He had 7 tackles for loss. He had 6 sacks from the interior. 6. 6. That is something that caught me off guard when I read it. I was like, oh my God, he had 6 sacks? Boy, that went under the radar. It really did. And his development from year 1 to year 2 was massive. It was massive leaps and bounds. If you look at the stats from last year to this year, massive leaps. And that's definitely boding well for lining him up next to Tier and Jamari going forward. So I'm loving the starters from going forward. I'm loving that. So yeah, shouts out to Justin Boybe. I give him an A grade for the simple fact that he shocked everybody with those numbers. I mean, you had 6 sacks from the interior. That's crazy work. That's crazy work. So yeah, he definitely did his 1-2 thing. Appreciate that. And the things are looking up for him. Again, he got 2 more years on his deal. Yeah, so I'm looking to see what he's going to do in year 3. He should even take another step in his development. I'm sure. Hopefully he will do that and not rest on his laurels. But yeah, man, he did his thing. And get into Deshaun Hand, mixed bag with him. He was hurt a little bit. Like I said, missed 4 games, 13 games played, 29 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss. He had a sack and a half. He did force 2 fumbles though. I will give him a lot of credit for that. Veteran guy. He's not elite at the run. And I think I found out that him and Otito Abonyo guy ran at a lot. And that's what I talked about earlier about how they ran away from Thierry and Jamari. I think they ran at him. They ran away from those guys and ran at Deshaun Hand and Otito a lot. They kind of identified where they were at and they kind of called run plays geared towards running at them with good running teams. It comes to mind what the Colts did, what the Jaguars did. Those guys, the Commanders, what they did in the run game, even the Dolphins, they ran at them a lot. So that I don't really give him a high mark and high praise for his run defense this year. But I mean, he saw the stats. I mean, I'm not going to take away from what he did. He definitely had a decent season, but I think we can probably find somebody better and younger in the draft, in the mid to late rounds if we're going to move on from him, which I think we probably should. I mean, with the 3 guys that we have in I guess you can say the idea of them being the starters, right? In a reserve role guy, I would maybe try to go younger and develop a guy from that space. I wouldn't necessarily kick the tires again on Deshaun. I think you can find a better run blocker in the draft or even free agency. So we'll see. But shout out to Deshaun Hand for doing his thing. Like I said, I give Justin an A. I probably give Deshaun probably a C minus, C plus ish type of season. C plus. I give him C plus. Nice. Very nice. Shout out to Deshaun Hand, man. Appreciate you. But getting into the linebackers, man, Denzel Perryman and Deion Henley. Getting to those guys, we know about Denzel's injury history. I've talked about it a lot. He did play 10 games. But 2 of those he was suspended for, though, which I didn't like at all. I really didn't. I think that was a really BS move by the NFL and them calling a suspicion on him, when he hadn't had a long history of what they said he did. He hadn't had a foul of that magnitude in quite some time. It's like 2 or 3 years time frame. He hadn't been penalized all year for that particular thing they suspended him for. But I did a whole video in it. I'm not gonna rant about it. But I think it was BS. I really do. I really do thinking them suspending him for that time frame was BS. It really was. But really known for his run blocking ability and tackling, his stopping guys in their tracks. So, shouts out to Denzel for what he did. But started with the man, the Iron Man of the defense and Deion Henley, right? 16 games played. He sat out that last one. So he played technically every game that he was suited up for. 103 tackles. 103 tackles. I think that might have led the team. 5 tackles for loss from the interior linebacker spot. 3.5 sacks from the interior linebacker spot, which is a good thing. 2 interceptions, to his credit. No forced fumbles, but he had 5 pass deflections from that spot too as well. So he's truly, a converted safety from high school and college to a linebacker in the NFL. Yeah, he's definitely a 3-down linebacker, and I see an all-pro in his future if he keeps on this track. It's a rough competition in the AFC from a linebacker perspective. You got some good guys over there, Zaire Franklin and others that play really good ball, but he can get it done. Especially if he has another person that can line up next to him and kind of take the pressure off him a little bit. But yeah, definitely like what Deion did this year. Can't say enough about it. He's been a consistent and reliable inside interior linebacker in this particular space. Now, I would argue that Denzel's a little bit better at stopping the run, but Deion is overall good, better three down linebacker inside. He can cover, he can stop the run, he can cover man to man, he can do it all. He can rush the passer. He does all. He blitzes well. So yeah, I definitely love Deion's skill set. So I think they will be in good hands of his being a starter going forward. But so Denzel, 10 games, 47 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, no sacks, no picks, no forced fumbles, but they have 3 pass deflections. So yeah, solid season for the time he was out there. Solid season. Probably about 4.7 tackles a game. So yeah, he did his thing. He did his thing. But I would say that with Junior Colson likely coming back, and maybe you can find a steal in the draft that you can go younger on, I would probably move on from Denzel at this point at his age and his injury history. But we'll see. We'll see what they do it down the line. But kudos to him for coming back. Being one of the few remaining San Diego Chargers. Remember that. Some years ago. So shouts out to him for holding us down in 2025. So getting into the defensive backs now, Dante Jackson and Tyreek Steele, the primary outside corners for the 2025 campaign. Yeah, they did a really great job covering out in Jesse Minter's defense. Definitely that. People were very, very timid about doing it Dante at all. But Tarheeb got a lot of work, and I really love Tarheeb's ability to stop the run from the cornerback position. And it's just an open field tackling ability. That is an underrated skill set that a lot of people don't give him credit for. He is really good at tackling in open space. He really is. His long frame, I think he runs around about 6'2", 6'3", in his strength, he's really good at tackling in the open field. He stopped a lot of big gains in the first 2 years of him being a Charger just by, being a good tackler, if nothing else. You can say what you want about his cover skills, which are good. I think he's more of a zone cover guy than a man guy, but his cover skills, what he did as far as getting a lot of interceptions last year, not so much this year, but he definitely did big time things in the run and in the pass game in zone. So yeah, I think I got a pretty decent one with Tarheeb going forward. But Dante, 17 games played. He played every single game this year, even the giveaway game in the Broncos, last game of the season. 24 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. He had 4 picks, 12 pass deflections. Yeah, so he definitely showed up big time. He almost got a pass deflection in the game practically. It's almost that. So yeah, definitely breaking up a lot of passes and taking the ball away at a high clip for sure. Love that production. And Tarheeb, a couple of injuries. Missing a game here, a game there. I think he missed 2 actual games. I would say 1 because he really didn't. He probably wasn't going to play in that Broncos game anyway. But 53 tackles. Now that's a lot. That's a lot for a corner. 53 tackles from the corner spot is a lot. And that's why I say he's a really good tackler. He has 5 tackles for loss. He had 2 forced fumbles and 7 pass deflections in his 15 games. So yeah, he definitely did pretty well as well. Again, some underrated things here. Some guys were really contributing that we didn't think that were, blowing you away from a production perspective. They just were putting on their hard hat and going to work. They weren't looking for accolades. They were just grinding it out. So Dante and Tarheeb definitely had a good season. We get into Cam Harden and Benjamin St. Juice. Now, I was really out on St. Juice when they got him. I didn't love it. I didn't love the move. He really showed me little to nothing when he was in Washington. That could be a byproduct of what he was being coached by and what the situation was there. But it's, you can't deny that he's 6'3", can run pretty well, a big frame guy. So, it's hard to throw around him and throw past him because he's so tall, rangy. Of course, Cam Hart, he was the, outside of concussion problem he had last year, which he ironically didn't have much of it this year, which is a good turnaround for him because I was concerned. He played 16 games out of the 17, 48 tackles. Again, that's a lot for a corner. Him and Tarheeb were tackling a lot in the open space for sure. Got an interception. He has 11 pass deflections. That's a lot. That's a lot. Again, you at least almost getting 1 a game. So yeah, breaking up passes, taking the ball away. He definitely did his thing as well. In Benjamin St. Juice's case, 16 total games, 37 tackles, 1 interception, and 7 pass deflections. In a reserve role because he was like the 3rd or 4th corner in most spaces. I mean, if Tarheeb or Cam were hurt, he moved up to 3. But yeah, for the most part, he was the 3rd or 4th guy. He only got on the field on straight passing downs. So yeah, he definitely did work from that perspective, to getting those numbers, despite the fact that he wasn't playing a whole lot of snaps. So yeah, shouts out to that, man. But yeah, I would give definitely give Dante an A. I would definitely give Tarheeb A minus, and I will give Cam a B plus, and I'll give St. Juice a B minus, B minus. So yeah, pretty good production, pretty good production. So all right, we're going to the safeties real quick. Of course, Derwin James is the household name. Another All-Pro season as a slot corner. They kind of fit him into that role when Chris O'Leary was here in his previous tenure before he became the defensive coordinator. Putting him into that slot corner role in a lot of spaces, you blitz him, you have him guarding tight ends and slot receivers, things of that nature, and he made 2 All-Pros behind that. On top of the fact, playing deep cover safety in certain aspects of it, being a really good box run defender and nickel, big nickel sets. So yeah, clearly Derwin is revitalized and rejuvenated, with him having that high mark coming into the league, when he was drafted, right? And once he got over the injuries, yeah, he's playing like he is advertised. Like we thought he might once he finally got into the Chargers organization. So yeah, loving that. 16 games played, solid the last one, didn't miss a game. 94 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, a forced fumble, and 7 pass breakups. So yeah, I mean, fill up the stats here. Why don't you, Derwin? Fill up the stat sheet, my guy. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, man. So yeah, definitely rounded out to an all-pro level season and playing that nickel slot corner role and that safety role and that box safety role in Jesse Miller's defense, man. Look great. Look great. Now, Elijah Molden, he's solid. A little undersized for my money. But the Jim Harbaugh loves his toughness. So, I give him credit for that. Injury prone, to a higher level. He's definitely always seemed to be banged up with soft tissue injuries, hamstrings of that nature. But when he's on the field, he's effective. 12 games played, 52 tackles, interception, two forced fumbles, and a pass deflection. Yeah, so you saw it pretty solid this year. I was expecting a little more from him, but again, you got to be on the field to be productive, right? So hopefully we can have a better, healthier season out of him in 2026. But he is signed, I think, for at least for the next year. I think he signed a 3-year deal when he got him 2 years ago. So yeah, so he should be here for another year, adding to that safety room and developing the young guys. So yeah, it should be a good time. Should be a good time. Rounding it out, we'll talk about Tony Jefferson and RJ Mickens, man. 2 of my favorites in reserve safety roles. I love Tony Jefferson's awareness, man. I really do. I mean, you just can't coach the things he does on the field. He just knows where to be. He knows how to play. He knows, football in a very, very detailed level. He's just one of those guys that, just really instinctive, moves and reacts and just always around the football. 13 games played, they were kind of mixing and matching him with the practice squad, no practice squad, and who they want to have as safety, right? But when he was locked in, and I think, when Elijah got hurt, I think he really brought him up and didn't put him back down the practice squad at all. Because I was scared because the production he was giving us early on in the season, I like, y'all can't put him on the practice squad. Somebody gonna snatch him up. But they didn't, kept him on the roster, kept him up, and he played 13 full games and 57 tackles in 13 games. 1 tackle for loss, no sacks. We had 4 picks. One was a game sealing pick against the Eagles, if I remember that. 7 pass breakups. So yeah, and the guy that was, in and out in the 3rd or 4th safety role in certain cases, that's a lot of production from a guy that only played 13 games. So yeah, shout out to Unc, man. I hope we can get him back. I think he's looking to come back because Chris O'Leary's here again. He loved being coached by Chris O'Leary when he was here a year ago. So yeah, I think that as long as the money's right, I think he'll come back and we'll get him back in the room along with Elijah and Derwin. And to round out, my guy, RJ Mickens, rookie campaign. I was very high on him coming out of the draft. I think he was a steal getting him where we got him at. I believe it was a 6th round. He played 12 games. He had a little bit of this. He was really coming on. He caught a couple of picks, midway through the season, and he banged up that shoulder. And that kind of kept him out of the lineup until the very end. But yeah, with his being the 4th safety in the room, a lot of times, every time you got on the field, you noticed it. He's really good against the run. I love what he does, and I think this might be a Harbaugh staple. He finds guys that get really good tacklers. Because RJ Mickens in the preseason and regular season save a lot of big plays from happening with his speed, his range, his size. He saved a lot of big plays from happening from open field tackles. Cam Harden and Taheeb still did the same. So yeah, he's a really good tackler, good cover guy. He's a really good instinctual guy around the football. 12 games played, 29 tackles. He had 2 interceptions and 2 pass deflections. That's pretty good for a rookie campaign with a guy that was legit, the 4th safety in the room for sure. So I'm liking what he's going to do and bringing Chris O'Leary back. Remember, he hadn't been coached by Chris O'Leary yet because Chris O'Leary was gone by the time they drafted RJ. So him having the the ability to be coached by Chris O'Leary, I think it's going to take his game to another level. I think that once Elijah and Tony are probably done with the team, I think RJ is going to be the guy, man. I'm looking for him to kind of fill that void and be a legit Pro Bowler when it's all said and done. So his skill set tells me all the right things. So I'm looking to see what RJ can do because I think he's going to be really good for this team. I'm really looking forward to what Chris O'Leary can unlock for him. I think the sky's the limit with this kid. I really do. He has all the size, the skills, and the speed to do it. I'm really looking forward to seeing him in 2026. So, shouts out to that. Shouts out to the defense, man. Like I said, they did great. They definitely had things rolling. And again, top 10, top 5 in pretty much every category. Notable. They were really good against pretty much everybody. So we just got to see what Chris O'Leary can do as far as building on this particular regime that Justin Miller left him. Right. Just got to see what happens. But if he can do anything, if he can keep us in the top 10 with Mike McDaniel's offense turning things around in 2026, you keep us in top 10. I believe the stat is if your defense is top 15 or higher and your offense is top 10, you make it to the Super Bowl more often than that, or you definitely make a deep run in the playoffs. So that alone should be positive vibes for the Chargers fans going forward. So if Chris can just keep us in the top 10 or do exactly what Jesse did, I'm not mad at that either. I'm not going to limit it. If you can keep us where we're at or go higher, or at least keep us in the top 10, with the personnel that you're going to get in 2026, I think the sky's the limit for the team. And I think we're on the way to competing in this league. And it's definitely in the AFC for sure. So we'll see how things roll, man. But as the defensive evaluations. So, as always, if you're looking for the Electric Shock podcast, any space, any time, we're on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button to support the podcast movement. Hit us up on social media if you have any questions about Chargers news. We can be found on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Gmail. The handle is Electric Shock Pod on all platforms, so please get at us for all things Chargers. It's Electric Shock Pod with no K, just to clarify that if you're listening. But as always, man, in the meantime, in between time, you got to do one thing, and one thing well. You always got to remember to boat up.